Radio in motion program loading in 3, 2, 1. Program activated.
Attention everyone, the unpleasant noise you are about to hear coming from your radio is not a mistake.
Okay, first things first, what is your name?
This is Big Sonny playing the best of the 90s and beyond.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah. Radio in motion.
Please do not turn off your radio, but turn up the volume on your receiver as high as it can go.
All right, here we go.
Radio in motion.
All right, welcome back to the show. Thanks for joining me tonight on Radio in Motion. We had some great songs there, including San Elmo's Fire, and of course, you can't think of the Brat Pack and not think of San Elmo's Fire, and of course, songs from The Breakfast Club, Pretty in Pink. So tonight on The Ugly Truth, I wanted to delve into the past and talk about the Brat Pack. Now, this is sparked because there is a great Andrew McCarthy documentary out called BRATS, streaming on Apple, and I think it's also on Disney Plus, actually, at least here in Australia. Anyway, it's a great documentary. He revisits the whole Brat Pack, and it's just so funny how he's going through his phone and he's like, well, let's call up Judd Nelson. Let's see what Rob Lowe's doing. Let's see if Demi is busy. And the way he talks about it is like they haven't talked in 30 years, which is interesting. And look, I'll tell you about more of that in a minute with the Brat Pack. And if you don't know who they are, you might be a bit too young, but I'll let you know who's involved in the Brat Pack. But first, I actually wanted to talk about someone who died, which was kind of surprising. I feel like I have a watch list of people that I'm concerned about because they're getting older, and this was Phil Donahue. Died at 88. He's one of those that I just wasn't sure, what was he up to lately? I was wondering. Well, I found out, and it's also, I don't know if it's just coincidence. I don't know if I believe in coincidence or it's just serendipitous, but I literally was just watching the documentary BRATS, and during the movie, there were a lot of clips that actually involved Donahue on the Donahue Show, because frankly, he was the trendsetter in that space, and there were quite a few episodes where he actually interviewed all of those actors. So Donahue was certainly the forerunner of sort of infotainment, certainly a groundbreaking show. Long before Oprah, there would have been no Oprah if there was no Donahue. There certainly would have been no Jerry Springer, but Jerry Springer was a whole other kettle of fish. Donahue, was legit, put it that way. And usually that's how it is with the first iteration of anything. And for him, it was that infotainment. So it was, whoever they were interviewing, whoever they had on stage, he wasn't afraid to actually still ask hard-hitting questions, but still have fun with it and still be a bit lighthearted. And he knew how to approach Hollywood actors by softening them up first and then dropping the hammer and asking a real question. And I mean a real question, not a bullcrap mainstream media propaganda question that's just already engineered. He was one of the last true on-air journalists, and I have to say, folks, I don't think there's many of those left. Maybe Tucker Carlson, that's about it. But Donahue definitely paved the way. He'd always run around in the audience with the mic, and you're like, oh, that's old news. Well, he was the first one to do that, and actually have audience members with no not pre-scripted, ask off-the-cuff questions, and that, I miss that. That was such sort of an innocent time of infotainment and news television. But yeah, walk around the audience and say, what do you think? What's your question? What's your comment? And then, the people on the stage would have to ask it because it was real. So yeah, I think he had real class and real talent, and was a true journalist, and showed us what info and entertainment mashed up could really be like. But enough about that. I did want to obviously talk about the documentary BRATS. So this is about the Brat Pack, and Andrew McCarthy decided to get them all together and and talk to them about how those times affected them. And when you think of Brat Pack, you think of movies like The Outsiders, Breakfast Club, Pretty in Pink, 16 Candles, Weird Science, the movie Class, About Last Night. And again, there's a lot of sort of adjacent even, Back to the Future with Michael J. Fox. Tom Cruise was certainly Brat Pack adjacent. They were in movies together. Taps, Risky Business, Tom Cruise, his career certainly did well. But I suppose the core of the Brat Pack is certainly represented in the movie St. Elmo's Fire. It's Andrew McCarthy, Judd Nelson, Molly Ringwald, Ali Sheedy, Emilio Estevez. Certainly they're the core of that. Demi Moore and Rob Lowe. They were sort of the original ones hanging out. And then there's other adjacent, like I say, Michael J. Fox, and there's others out there, and other movies, Footloose, all of them, geared towards young people. And at that time, movies were really all just starring adults. If they had kids, the kids were like comedy relief, or if it was a family movie, it was an ensemble of a family cast. But these movies, and yeah, most of them were, if you're a huge pop culture fan, obviously John Hughes certainly, he was heading that ship of all these movies about young people and all the angst they were going through at the time, with Breakfast Club and Pretty in Pink and so many movies that were about them. And the adults, frankly, were nowhere to be seen in those movies, because it wasn't about them. And if they were, it was just dropping them off at school or something in the background. And also, it's interesting. I feel like those movies back then, a lot of the young, teenagers, they were really dealing with heavy adult stuff, thinking about, the end of their life and the drama. And you think, oh, well, preteens are like that today. Even back then, I think they were really contemplating heavy stuff. But it was interesting. These movies, they weren't like today. They weren't slapstick comedy. It was genuine, heartfelt emotion in these young people. And it's certainly a thing of the past, and it was a great thing. So all of this sparked with the idea of the Brat Pack. And really, you could say that was sort of a take on the Rat Pack, which was the original sort of, the Sammy Davis Jr. and the Dean Martin, the Rat Pack, Vegas sort of old style singers and crooners and actors. And this was the next generation taking over. But the person who actually really coined that phrase was a journalist named David Blum. He wrote a piece in called Hollywood's Brat Pack in the New York Magazine in 1985. And when, and Andrew McCarthy says this in the movie, when he saw that, he really sort of, he was taken aback by it, because he thought, they really missed the point. This is not what we're about. Because it wasn't a piece that was really trying to prop them up. And now originally it was supposed to be a piece about Emilio Estevez specifically, but I guess as he started talking, it turned out to be about all of them, because they were all hanging out at that time, making movies. A lot of it was because I think he had actually seen that group of people hanging out at the Hard Rock Cafe. Again, just like today, especially with Hollywood, they try to sell you this image that everyone who's in the movie, they're also friends off set. Now, very often, of course, that's very true, and we like to think that about movie stars and directors in movies, that offset, they hang out with the family. Again, I'm not saying that's not true. That's really true. But in some cases, especially in this case, it may have been they were all on that same journey together, and they were thrown into some of the same movies, and yeah, they might have hung out because they were clinging to each other for so many reasons, for support and collaboration, and some of it was a little bit because that was the look at the time, to hang out and do PR. Again, I think they were really true friends, but after this, they all sort of went their separate ways, which is a bit sad. So yeah, this was more of a hit piece by this journalist. And frankly, And I'll tell you a bit more at the end, because he actually, Andrew McCarthy ended up interviewing him, which was fantastic and a surprise, because you wouldn't think that journalists would maybe really want to be honest after all this time. And I think he was and he wasn't, but I'll tell you that in a minute. So essentially, I think this journalist was one of those first sort of pseudo-journalists who was looking for his 15 minutes of fame. Now, again, I know I come down hard on mainstream media. That's because I believe, everything that comes out of their mouth is just prepackaged propaganda that they're told what to say, based on whatever advertiser is sponsoring the show. That's a fact. Now, then there's written journalists who write stories, and I think they're probably a little bit closer to altruistic, true journalism, but still not a lot of those left. I feel like they put too much of their own opinion in it heavily rather than actually reporting the facts. And this particular, journalist, he really made it a hit piece about them to say, like, they're just this group of young actors and actresses have been thrust into the limelight, and they don't really have the chops yet, and they don't have the pedigree. That's a fact. That's how they took it. That's how everyone in this group took it, that they were trying to say, with brats, they just are entitled and they think they're the next thing, but they haven't earned it yet. Now, that could very well be true with a lot of actors or actresses even today. But you know what? When you hear all of them, or you know the history of these actors, because they've been around a while, even at that time, and if you watch any of these movies, Pretty in Pink or The Breakfast Club, they're not like some, crazy, silly, wacky rom-com today. These were dramatic scenes in these movies. And you know what? If you don't think that these young actors and actresses took their craft seriously, then you've missed the whole point. So I think that's the level that it hurt Andrew McCarthy on specifically, that they were just starting their career. And yeah, sometimes you get thrust into the limelight too soon, but I think he was like, this is going to derail us. Again, it's a great documentary. It really affected him, I think, more than any of the others. So yeah, like I said, I think it was this journalist seeing if he could rocket to fame on the back of them by the way he wrote it as a hit piece rather than something endearing or positive. And again, like I say, Hollywood found their target audience. And frankly, they haven't let it go since then. That's a fact. You can see. Even every adult movie really still is really geared towards that audience of like 18 to 25. And that's the money audience. And a little thing back then, I just wanted to say, you have to understand, movie culture was different back then. Nowadays, okay, you could say maybe teenagers are more connected because they're all on the internet and TikTok and Facebook, and they're all on social media, so they all are connected to the same things. If you ask them across the country, across the globe, will they answer the same things of what pop stars they're into, what clothing they're into, what movies they're into? You could say that there would be similarities, but I argue to say that nowadays it's just more erratic and dispersed because they have way too much information coming to them from every angle. It's like I say with buying an album. It was the same thing. You would buy an album and it had the cover art, especially when it was records, and it was all about purchasing it. It was yours. You would listen to the entire album of one group, and that became your favorite group, and it was all about your collection. Now, music is just streaming from everywhere, or it's playing from every single social platform, and every way it's a barrage. If you ask someone who's your favorite artist, they probably just say whoever's on at the moment. My argument is that back then, especially going to a movie, you had to go to the movies. It was an effort to get there, to get your parents to drive you there, or someone's driven you there. You buy the ticket. You wait in line, by the way, especially if it's a very popular movie, and it's a commitment, and you all go in, and you're all there with your friends and everyone in town. And this is happening all over, the country. Back then, I think there was even more of a uniformity about sort of a collective pulp culture, and especially with movies. If you had asked any teenager at that time, have you seen Breakfast Club? Have you seen Weird Science? Have you seen Back to the Future? Have you seen Pretty in Pink? Every single one of them would have answered 100% yes. I don't think you could say that for today if you were to select a movie, even if it were a popular young person's movie. I think you'd get a mixed bag. So that's what I'm telling you of how much, influence especially the Brat Pack had, and this movie, especially something like The Breakfast Club, which is like a rite of passage to this day. There's teenagers who watch that and that movie resonates with them. So I'm just setting the scene to how big these movies were, and that collectively all young people were focused on it. And yeah, definitely the Breakfast Club, Ali Sheedy, she mentions that too. It's like she's flattered that even to this day, people mention that, how much they find an affinity with her and the part she played in that movie. So Andrew McCarthy, the movie opens and he's on his phone, and it's just so funny. He's just flipping through. Let's give them a call. And you're not sure who he's going to get to. Because again, it's been a while. Some of them are leading private lives. Maybe you haven't heard from them for a while. They aren't in the limelight anymore. And I think Ali Sheedy is one of those. I think she's found her own life. And so that was one of the first ones he caught up with. And it's interesting when he talked to her, she talked mainly about the Breakfast Club. Again, early days in her career, one of her first movies, John Hughes. They all have such affectionate things to say about John Hughes. He obviously, again, he had the pulse of that vibe at the time with movies about young people. And again, not just about something wacky and crazy, real drama, real moments in those movies. And she talked about her role in the Breakfast Club as the sort of the outcast one. Again, if you haven't seen Breakfast Club, I can't help you. It's one of the best movies because it really does, to this day, reflect sort of that social hierarchy in high school. And maybe some of the who's in charge and who's popular has changed, sort of like nowadays the nerds have won, and back then they were on a different rung. But really it was about the popular kid, the jock, the nerdy kid, the outcast, a little bit weird kid, the criminal kid, the rich princess, that could be a guy or a girl, the rich kid, the sporty kid. They really did reflect each facet of that hierarchy in high school. And so for her, she played the sort of the kooky outcast girl. Didn't quite fit in. Maybe super early days goth, but not goth quite yet. Just a little bit adjacent, askew, out of the middle. And she said for her, she really just played it like how she felt in high school. And you know what? I think that reflects in the part very well. You can see that it's just very natural for her. And to this day, even in the interview, I feel like she still has some of the same sort of awkward mannerisms when she's talking. And maybe that's just how she is, or maybe that's what was brought out in the role, and that's how she felt as a teenager, just a bit awkward. So everyone put in their own point of view of how it affected them. And for her, I don't think it affected her too badly. She still has, a lot of affection for the Breakfast Club and anyone who talks about it. But, and I'm sorry, that was the second one he talked to. The first one he talked to was Emilio Estevez, and I think that was interesting. Also, a side note, it's hilarious. Andrew McCarthy just can't figure out maps. It was hilarious. Everyone's house that he passed, and it was Emilio Estevez. He was trying to figure out the maps, and he's driving by, and Emilio goes, "Hey, Andrew!" He's driving by him. You can see him in the background of the rental car, and he's on his property. So that was funny. He did it a couple times during the movie. It's like, come on, you're giving a bad name to your boomer generation. You can't even figure out technology. Now, I think it was interesting with Emilio Estevez. They had a real moment. Now, again, supposedly they hadn't seen each other in 30 years, which again, you're like a hogwash. Don't tell me that there's not some way in the inner circle of Hollywood they haven't bumped into each other at some award show or something. But I have to take that at face value that they actually haven't caught up in that long. And that's amazing. So that was quite a moment. And pretty much right away, he started telling him what the documentary was about. And he says, how did you feel about that piece called The Brats of Hollywood, and how did it affect you? And, Emilio Estevez, I think he also was visibly affected, because he talked about it in such a way that he said it certainly affected the next steps in their life. And for him, I think he was aware that they all went their separate ways. And I think he was one of those that also did that on purpose, because he felt that maybe he wanted to put some distance from him and this narrative of the brats, the entitled brats who haven't earned their right in the new place in the Hollywood upper echelons. They've been thrust into the limelight too fast, like they haven't earned it. And I think as you would, you're worried about if this is your passion and your career and your livelihood, you have to make a decision. Do I ride this train, or do I get on another one? And I think for him, he did decide to distance himself. And, obviously his career did just fine, went on to Young Guns and directing and other movies. And everyone knows Emilio Estevez and, obviously Martin Sheen, his dad, Charlie Sheen, his brother. Yes, he used a different last name, but that's a whole other kettle of fish. That's a whole other thing to unpack. I'm sure there'll be a documentary on that. So that was Emilio Estevez's take. And Andrew McCarthy, they had a real moment where he said that's interesting. That's exactly how I feel. So again, I think it really affected Andrew in a negative way, just so you know. And it's interesting in the interactions he had with some of the others, where he was able to get an insight to another point of view, because he's really locked into the how it affected them in a negative way. Again, it made an assumption that they were these brats and they were entitled. And it was, sometimes it doesn't take much. You know how mainstream media is. If they turn on you, you're done. Okay? And that hasn't changed. That's been around since the beginning of media and the beginning of Hollywood. You're either in bed together and friends, but if you don't toe the line, you make a mistake, they'll cancel you. You think cancel culture started now? No, it was easing its way back in the day, my friends. But yeah, and I think this is what they're worried about, that if they got on the wrong side of the media, it could be a career ender. And that's stressful for anyone. Think of your career, think of your job. If you were too close to a group of people or something was written about you, would you distance yourself from it? So yeah, they found that they agreed with that. So it was great to see that. Again, I'm going to talk about this, and there are spoilers as such as far as some of the interactions, but you would have to watch it to see the real conversations, and it's well worth it. So I'm not gonna give you conversations verbatim. So the other one I think was interesting that he caught up with was Demi Moore, and she certainly was part of that. A lot of the movies that she was in, About Last Night with Rob Lowe in St. Elmo's Fire. I think it's interesting that I've never counted out Demi Moore. She's obviously, no matter what everyone has an opinion about any actor and actress from the 80s, I think she's found a good way to reinvent herself every once in a while, and in an appropriate way. I don't think she's ever picked parts, maybe for a time, where she's playing well below. Again, it's harder for women in Hollywood, it is. Men can play whatever you look like. There's been, late 40s men playing 30-year-old men. So yes, with women, they're a bit crueler to them. But I think Demi Moore has always picked an appropriate part for her. And she's, like I say, reinvented herself through the decades. And so her part of it was, she took it as, you don't give it so much power, like anything. And she didn't say it in an airy-fairy way. She actually comes off very pragmatic. She said, and she was trying to help Andrew McCarthy get over it, that you have to look forward. Take it for what it is, that was written, and also, why don't you use it for the positive that it is? She said, honestly, don't you realize that some of them may have benefited from it just because, hey, you know what they say in that business, any publicity is good publicity, usually. And for that part, I think she tried to ride the positive wave of it and just say, all right, it is what it is. You think I'm part of the Brat Pack? Well, that's cool. I bet you wish you could join us. You know what I mean? That was her take on it. I bet you wish you could be in the Brat Pack because we're awesome. And again, that doesn't mean you can just rest on your laurels. I think she went on to prove it, as most of them did, that they did have the skills to do it. They did earn that based on merit, not just because someone said, you're lucky to be where you are. So yeah, and that opened up Andrew McCarthy's eyes a bit to not see it in such a negative light. So I thought that was interesting, her take on that. And the next one he caught up with was Rob Lowe. And look, Rob Lowe, I have to tell you, he has certainly survived through the ages. Again, much like Demi Moore, certainly reinventing himself and keeping up rather than just being an old curmudgeon in Hollywood. By the way, he's one of those similar to Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is finally aging, but Rob Lowe, I have to admit, and this was just made only just last year or so, he does not look like he's aging. So whatever concoction of Hollywood serum he's on, I don't know what he's taking. It's working. So he's looking youthful. But yeah, Rob Lowe's take on it was, and Andrew actually alluded to this, that he said, you've always had sort of an aloof, devil-may-care attitude. And I'm not going to lie, Rob Lowe does, but it works for him. It works for him in his parts, and it works for him because he's very charismatic off screen. And he pretty much said, look, I think he was off with other thoughts at the time, and he didn't give it too much credence at all. And it didn't seem to bother him. So again, he took it as a whatever, and he already had sort of that like I say, devil-may-care attitude anyway. I don't think he would let too much in, not to say that he's not someone who's a deep thinker or introspective, but he certainly again tried to take it as a positive spin. And again, he was smart to be in movies like Wayne's World and Tommy Boy and get aligned with Saturday Night Live and show that he's not just this he's not the face. Brad Pitt probably did similar when he tried to take roles that were a bit different than just, he's just the face. He's the Hollywood face. And Rob Lowe showed us that he certainly has a sense of humor. That's what I like. So Rob Lowe was able to show, he's on Parks and Rec. He's got great comedic timing. And again, that's not something you can go to, acting school or film school. I'm sorry. If anyone says, welcome to comedy school, you've got problems. That's just something you naturally have or you don't. And he does. So it didn't affect Rob Lowe too much, as it seems. And again, there was a comment that why be so focused on the fact that it was brats? It was also kind of a take on the Rat Pack. And frankly, and this is a story Andrew McCarthy told, they actually hung out at Sammy Davis Jr.'s house, Andrew McCarthy and Rob Lowe. Okay, so that was the Brat Pack actually hanging out with one of the top members of the Rat Pack. And Sammy Davis Jr. obviously held legendary parties. He was saying, you guys are the next thing. I tell you, I've been watching you. I want to work with you. That's not a Sammy Davis Jr. impression. That was terrible. But my point is that's how I looked at it too. Again, I'm not them. I can't be Andrew McCarthy. Obviously was affected by it in a negative way. But I thought it was like a passing of the torch of the old world, Vegas lounge act, older guys, the Rat Pack, and to the Brat Pack. Not to say it wasn't earned, but it was just the new age Rat Pack. And again, both of them not supposed to be something negative. It's something cool. The Rat Pack is synonymous with cool. Okay, it has the word rat in it, but no one goes, oh, were they rats? No, they were cool. It's Frank Sinatra. Come on. So yeah, everyone had a different take on it. Rob Lowe seemed fine with it. And I think this one was interesting. So this was the writer, David Blum. He actually reached out to him, and he agreed to do an interview. And I thought that was interesting. Now, again, definitely watch the movie. My take on it is that David Blum is still a bit of a wanker. He came off like that. He really came off like he was really pompous. And I'm like, dude, first of all, nobody knows who you are. I don't want to be mean. I'm sure your professional career was just fine. I'm sure you've achieved great things. More power to you. But as far as this, if you thought you were going to be the name, every single one of the actors that we've talked about, they are worldwide fame one way or another and still in everyone's minds. Nobody knows who you are, pal. But he came off really snobby, like he was really still crappy about it. And the part that made me think of that, he actually had a go at Tom Cruise specifically. He said, "Oh, look, some of you I think were more in the core of the Brat Pack, but then there were others like Tom Cruise." He goes, "How did Tom Cruise get his start?" He said, "Apparently he was just in some high school play, and then all of a sudden he's making movies, and with no training." You're one of those. You're one of those that feel like the pedigree needs to hang on the wall. That somehow that makes you who you are. Oh, how many degrees do you have? Oh, not enough for my taste. Well, let me tell you, in Hollywood, there are a lot of actors. Yeah, they went to acting school. They went down that route. Whatever acting style they want to use. And there are some, again, who just had actual natural raw talent. And it sounds like you're just jealous of that. If Tom Cruise, again, he hasn't won an Oscar. Has he deserved one at some point? Probably. Is he an actor who's also tried to be dramatic, and also happens to be that he just makes movies that are popular, and now he's the one of the last actual old world Hollywood stars making still some of the top movies this day? Is that where you're mad at him? So he had to go at Tom Cruise, saying, who exactly does he think he is? And then to top it off, he asked Andrew, he goes, "Oh, well, you graduated from NYU, right? So you have those skills." And Andrew McCarthy goes, "No, I dropped out, actually." And again, the face he made was like judging him too. Right, so you're going to actually judge Andrew McCarthy, again, another known name in Hollywood, amongst all these people, because you don't approve of his pedigree. Again, anyone who's like that is wank city, man. Sorry. So yeah, he didn't come off too cool in the movie. And Andrew kept saying, "Did you have to be so harsh? Why did you take it that angle?" He kept really talking around it. And I think a little bit came through is that, and he brought this upon himself in the way he said it. He says, I thought I might have furthered my career with it too. Well, there it is. You made that catchphrase. You made it a hit piece without thinking about how it would affect the livelihood of anyone you're writing about. And again, I know what you're thinking. I go after actors all the time, like, "Oh, boo-hoo, you're so sad, your life's so bad in your mansion up on the hill." But yeah, I have a soft place in my heart, especially for this group of actors, okay? They formed my whole childhood and a lot of my, how I react to movies today, and how I look back fondly on certain movies. So if you're going to make a hit piece about this group, I really don't think they deserved it. And that's all Andrew was saying is, why did you have to go so harsh? So yeah, I thought that was interesting. But yeah, Rob Lowe and Demi's take were more positive. Now he reached out to others. He reached out to Molly Ringwald, and apparently, again, they're all in their own space. They're all on their own journey. Molly Ringwald said, "Well, I'll get back to you. I haven't decided yet." And now that one went a bit differently. You watch the movie to find out how Molly Ringwald's went. And he also reached out to Judd Nelson, and I'll leave that one a mystery as well, how that one turned out. It's certainly interesting for both of them. Again, I don't want to spoil those. I'd like you to watch it and experience that for yourself. But yeah, it's interesting to look back, and it was interesting how, as I said at the start, Phil Donahue just passed away, and that was certainly something like the Donahue Show was part of that whole vibe at the time. Donahue being the whole infotainment sort of journalist, and then to have people up there, Molly Ringwald and Rob Lowe and Andrew McCarthy, and to have them being interviewed by Donahue. Yeah, it was all just coming back to me as, yeah, it's starting to hit hard. I'm getting old. People are dying, and that means I'm getting older. But yeah, look, if all of this is news to you and you didn't know who the Brat Pack was, and if you don't know any of these movies, that's your assignment, 100%. Your assignment is to go watch any of these movies: Pretty in Pink, Breakfast Club, St. Elmo's Fire, The Outsiders. Again, that's sort of Brat Pack adjacent. Tom Cruise, Ralph Macchio. A lot of these actors were, I still think, they were at least satellites on the outer edge of the main planets circling the Brat Pack. And again, they shaped the 80s, and they shaped a lot of, again, what Hollywood is still like, but the the bad parts of Hollywood, the parts of Hollywood that are stuck in this cycle that they can't get out of, that they can only make the same type of movies. They need to take a break from that. But yeah, definitely check out all the Brat Pack movies. And coming up tonight, more great music from the Brat Pack movies. Because again, if there was anything else that was synonymous with that style of movie, it was the soundtrack. Folks, I couldn't tell you what song plays in any movie today. I'm not even kidding. It's not Alzheimer's. I'm not in cognitive decline. I don't know. Unless it's the singer in the movie. Frankly, again, if you're a pop culture fan, you know that any 80s movie had to have had a song in it, and it was iconic, and it was out at the same time as the movie, and you went nuts when the movie came on. So yeah, whether it's Back to the Future or this was a bit later, but Batman, that Prince album, it was just insane. I don't even know how to explain that at the time. The Prince songs would come on and Batman was coming out. There was no internet, but yet everyone in America, every kid in America knew exactly when Batman was premiering. So yeah, movies back then were an event, and they were the social event that brought everyone together. So more great music coming up tonight on our 80s Brat Pack edition of Radio Motion. All right, more great music after word from our sponsors.